Hi, this is Cassandra from Cassie's Fun Creations. Today I'm going to show you how to loom knit a face mask. Now, of course, these face masks are just to protect you and others. They're not the protection for like at hospitals. They're just for you to basically, as they say, it's to protect others. So now I'm going to show you how to do this using the knit stitch, and it might not be the strongest thing, so if you want to make it stronger, do the purl stitch, but it's really easy to do, and all you're going to need is you're going to need your yarn, and I'm going to use 2 strands at a time. So I'm pulling basically from the inside and from the outside, so I'm going to put that away. That's just my variegated yarn from Bernat. And then I'm going to be using elastic. Now I bought a large elastic and I just cut it into smaller sizes. I'm going to be using this at 12 inches long. I measured it over to here, so you can probably see better. Okay, and that might be too long, but not knowing what size your head is, I'm going to say start with 12 inch and then you can adjust from there. So I'm going to put that over here. Now I've got a row counter, and I'm probably not going to use it because the only time we're going to count rows is we're going to go to 5 rows. But if you want to, you can get a row counter, or you can go ahead and you can get just a piece of paper and count. We're only going to use that on the ends, and then you're going to need some scissors, of course, and then you're going to need your knitting tool, and we're actually using a 24-page gig, 24 peg loom, so it's the gauge of what you have. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start by doing a slip knot. Hold your yarn in one hand, go over your fingers again twice, so you're creating 2 loops. Lift up the first loop, go through, grab the second loop, and pull. And it's called a slip knot, so we can move it. And we're going to go ahead and grab this, adjust it to our extra peg on the bottom, and tighten. Okay, so we're going to start off by double knitting 8 pegs. Okay, and this is what we're going to use to make, we're actually going to make a casing, and the casing is what's going to hold our elastic. So we're just going to loop once, we're going to loop twice, and we're going to go to the next one. So that's 2, that's 3. Now, depending on what yarn you want to use is up to you. The thicker gauge will give you a thicker mask, but you also need to make sure you can breathe through it. Now, I'm making this because I've got a paper mask I'm going to wear underneath, and then I'll wear this over for just a little bit of extra protection. So, now I didn't put any markers because I can just count to 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've got one more to go. And 8. Okay, at this point we're going to go ahead and we're going to go back, and when you go back, don't skip any pegs. So we're going to go back, go ahead and you're going to turn back, and then you're going to knit back. You're going to knit back all 8 pegs. Okay, so I'm back to all 8 pegs, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to knit all of those off. Just taking the bottom loop, moving it over the top loop, bottom loop, over the top loop. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to push those down. I just usually use my fingers on the inside, but you can use your fingers on the outside. They don't have to go all the way down, just a little bit down. Okay, and then we're going to do the exact same thing we did on the other side, but now I can go ahead and I can take my slip knot off and go ahead, turn the inside, I can pull the slip knot out and just get it out of my way for now. So now it's out on the other side. Okay, so now we're going to, oops, get my tool away. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to turn and we're going to wrap back. Okay, toss that over. Get that all the way over. Okay. Okay, so we did our bind on, we've gone all the way up, we've gone all the way back, so we've gone 2 rows. Okay, and somehow I missed, and I've got my yarn on the wrong side. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to go back. I'm going to turn it, and we're going to go back for row 3. We're actually going to do 5 of these rows. So if you want to go ahead, do 5 rows. I'll speed this up so you don't have to watch me. I know I'm really slow, but I've not been doing this really long. So go ahead, do 5 rows. When you've done all 5 rows, now if it gets too tight, just do 1 loop at a time. You can get sometimes a little tight when you're working with multiple strands. And when you get all the way down with 5 rows, stop the video, come back, and I'll show you where we go from there. Okay, I'm back, and you can go ahead. If you're not sure how many rows you did, you can count. Start at the top. There's 1 stitch, 2 stitch, 3 stitch, 1 stitch, 2 stitch, 3 stitch, 4 stitch, 5 stitch, but that first stitch is actually your cast on, so I've got 1 more to go. Okay, now I'm just going to go ahead. We've got all our 5 done, and I'm going to go ahead and push these all down. Because what we need to do now is we need to create our casing. And the way we're going to create our casing is we're going to go, first of all, we're going to grab our elastic, and we're going to take it to the outside of our first peg, and we're going to take it to the outside of our elastic peg. And we're just going to lay it to the outside of the first, outside of the last, because we're going to be putting this elastic inside the casing. So what I try to do is I go to the first peg, and I'm going to find the very first loop, and I'm going to put it over the very first peg, making sure that elastic is on the last side. And I'm going to do that for this one. I'm going to put it on the last side. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to find the very first loop, and I'm going to put it on the last peg. You do that to make sure that you've got your elastic inside your casing. Now you just go, once you get the first one on, it's usually easy to find the second one. Find the second loop, put it on, find the third loop, put it on, and just keep going until you have all of your first loops on your pegs. Like I said, once you get the first ones on, it's usually pretty easy. Make sure you get both of them. Okay, that's telling me I've got something confusing here because I've got trying to use the same loop on that one, and I don't want to do that. So I've got the first, the first, the first, the first. Make sure I've got the very first one on that one. It's showing me that is the first one there. So this must be the actual first one with the knot here. Yeah, that's the actual real first one. So if that happens, just stop, figure out where you made the mistake, and go. I just hadn't used the actual real first one. So that's all you have to do. That's the hardest part. And then you just loop these over, and you're going to hold your elastic inside. Okay? So take the bottom to the top, And all you're doing is you're securing your elastic. And don't worry, once we take this off the loom, you will be able to move your elastic, and we'll tie it or sew it. I recommend sewing it, just quickly sewing it together at the ends, and then moving the part that you sewed to the inside of the casing, but you can actually tie it. That's why we made it long enough. And that way you can adjust it to size for what size you need. Now these, obviously it's yarn, so they are washable, which is nice. I just didn't want to go over, so I'll move them by hand. Okay. So as you can see, we've got our elastic, and it's stuck inside. Now I'm going to take the elastic, and I'm going to move them inside so they're out of the way of my yarn, just like my first yarn. Okay? So now what we're going to do is now we're going to start increasing. And we're going to increase on each side as we go until we have 18 pegs. So how we're going to increase is we're going to start here, and we're going to do a double knit. Just like that. And then we're going to take our loom, and we're going to turn on that new stitch. Just turn, and knit completely back. And we're only going to add that extra peg when we have our yarn on that side. So we're not adding an extra one right now. It's only going to be when the yarn is on this side and we're turning to go the other direction. So I'm going to go ahead and knit all these off. And the reason we're doing this is we're trying to keep the edges as tight as we can, so when it fits our face, it'll stay tight. Now, I'm saying that you're going to need 18 pegs. If you're going to be doing a smaller mask, you might only need 16 pegs, maybe even 14 or 12, depending on what size mask you're going to make. Okay, I'm putting all that down. Now, so now we've got our yarn down on this side. So we're going to increase again. And for that, we're going to double knit it. Get my separation there, and knit it over. Now, just like before, we're going to go back, and we're going to complete knitting. Now, we started with 8, and we just added 2, so we're up to 10. So we're going to need to add 4 more to each side. So what I want you to do, and all you're doing is the same thing, is you're knitting each one off, making sure you're turning on each end. You're not skipping it on any of them. You're turning on each end, and go ahead and add 4 more to each side. And once you're done with that, stop, come back, and I'll show you what we're going to do from there. Okay, I'm back. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to knit off my 18th peg. So I may have told you the wrong math. Math used to be good for me, not so much since I got older. So I've knitted off my 18th. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go all the way back. So if I told you the wrong number of pegs to add, just make sure you have 18 pegs and that you've knitted off all 18 pegs. So go ahead and knit off. This is the last row of 18. And then we're going to go ahead and just knit this back without increasing or doing anything. I'm just adding a little bit of extra right towards the middle, because that's where your nose and your chin is. I'm just adding a little bit of extra back. And I think by doubling up on this yarn, it's going to be fine with the knit stitch. When I was practicing, I was using a not quite a large gauge of yarn, so it's a little bit harder to knit this, but it's going to be perfect for what we need. Okay, so go ahead and just knit back. Just push these down again. It's a little bit harder when you're using two strands of the larger gauge, but it's going to be perfect for this. All right, so turn and knit completely back, and then what we're going to start is we're going to start decreasing. So we're going to decrease from 18 back to 8. So we increased from 8 to 18, and now we're going to start decreasing from 18 back down to 8. So basically we're going to do the reverse of what we just did. Okay, so go ahead and knit off all those. I do change how I knit occasionally because I have arthritis, but arthritis seems to keep my hands moving, which is good, but it can also be painful at times. But I love, now that I've taken up knitting like 5 or 6 months ago, I love it. So can't do it with the regular traditional way, but I've got all these looms, so this is just as good, at least for me. Okay, so now push those all down because we are going to start the decrease. Now when you do a decrease, it's kind of like when you're binding off. So I'm going to go around that one, turn it, and go around that one. So I just went around the first one, turned it almost like a figure 8, went around that one. I'm going to bind off this one. I'm going to bind off this one, push them down. I'm going to go around number 1 again. I'm just reinforcing the edges, and I'm going to move the one from number 1 to number 2. All right, just gentle tug, and I'm going to loop that over. Okay, now we're only going to do this again on the same side that you have the yarn as when we're going to do the decrease. So now we're just going to loop back. So we've already decreased 1. We need to decrease 10 completely, so we go back down to our original 8. All right. I actually think I'm faster this way, but I get a callus on my thumb. I don't know why. Okay, now we're going to do our decrease again. We're going to go around this one, and I'm going to go like a figure 8 again. And pop that over, pop that one over, push those down. I'm going to go around the first one again, just like that. And I'm going to move that first one over to the second one. It'll cooperate. Yep, gotta go over to that side. There we go. Just give it a gentle pull. You don't want it too tight. And move it over. Now, push down all your yarns, and you're going to go back and forth, just like that. until you're left with your first original 8 pegs. So keep going until you're down to your original 8 pegs, and then we'll go from there. Okay, I'm back. I'm on my last decrease. So I've got 9 pegs left. This is my last decrease. I always found that first one was tight, so I did it one thread at a time instead of both of them. Whichever way you have to do it. Okay. Now I'm going to push them all down. Okay, and one thing I forgot to get out is I need some kind of markers. Because what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead, push that back out, make sure I've got my elastic back. We're going to go ahead and put stitch markers on these 8. Because what we're going to do is these are going to be the first part of our casing, and we're going to need to put them back on after we make the 5 rows. So let me just get out some stitch markers. And I just need 5 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Oh, I need 8 of them. Can't count. Okay, so I'm just going to put them on. Make sure you get all of the rows. We're going to do the same 5 rows that we did before. We're going to put the elastic in it before we close it up. And the only thing we're going to do different after that is we're going to go down from 2 yarns to 1, just to keep the bulk down when we actually bind off, and we'll be done. And then all we have to do is take care of our elastic, whether we tie it, whether we go ahead and sew it, whichever one we do, and then our mask is done. Now remember, with any type of masks, do not try it on yourself, because then you've just contaminated it. So you have to try it on the person it's for, especially if you're going to be adjusting the elastic. You try it on them. If you do feel like you have to try it on yourself first, go ahead and do that. Just make sure you wash it afterwards, and then store it like in a plastic bag after it's fully dry. And if it's a type of yarn that needs to air dry, then make sure you do that first. And if it's a type of yarn that's going to have to, it's going to stretch, take that into account when you make the actual mask itself. All right. Now, why would you want to make this as composed to sewing it? A lot of us don't sew. And a lot of us have a lot of yarn and a lot of time right now. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so all I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn. And I'm going to knit all the way back. Okay. Just because these tend to be tight, even though I've got my stitch markers on them, I'm going to use my tool to get them over. Okay. Making sure the tool goes with it. There we go. Yeah, I'm not sure I would trust the tool to get it over there, the marker to get it over, so I'm just going to put those over there. Ouch. Make sure you have your stitch markers closed, otherwise they will get you. Okay. And you can use any kind of stitch markers you have. If you don't, use safety pins. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Let's put that one back on there. Let's just wrap it again. So you got to make sure you keep a hold of your tail. All right? Let's go ahead and push all those down. That's our first row. So we're going to complete 4 more rows. Okay? Try to keep your stitch markers down so they don't interfere with your other 4 rows. Try to get that out of the way. There we go. Once again, the first one's always the tightest. That's 2 rows. That stitch marker down there. I don't want to get it mixed in these. Okay. That's 3 rows. That's 4 rows. We do our final row. I said you can use a row counter if you need to. I just, because it's only 5 rows and they're short rows, I can count them real quickly. And that's 5 rows. Okay. So now we need to add the elastic. So we're going to do like it last time. We're going to make sure it's on either side of the last pegs. And I'm going to grab my stitch markers, which somehow I have 2 of them that have managed to hook themselves together. And I think that happened when I had the one that opened. So I'm going to take this one off because I think that's the one that had managed to open itself. It's going to keep me from getting the other one on. If you can get the side ones on, you could figure out the other ones. So let's get the side ones on. All right. So that's my first side. Yep, that's my first side. Okay, so I need to lock in the elastic. And here's my last side. Okay. And here's my second one. Sometimes if I turn it to the big side on this one, I can get it easier. Not always, but sometimes. If you need to use your tool to open it up a little bit more, do that. Just trying to get it over your peg. And just so you know, variegated yarn tends to split. Of course, I love variegated yarn. Okay. And then we've got the next one, which appears to be right here. It's also harder because we have two strands we're working with instead of just one. But that's to help make our mask a little bit more stable. All right. Here's the fourth one. All right. Here's the fifth one. I think this is the hardest part of the whole mask. And where is the sixth one? Can't tell if that's the sixth or the seventh. Okay, well, I think that's the one that goes next to the first one over here. All right, and then I'm just going to grab the first loop right here and put it on. Okay. Now, if I can get these off easily, I'll take them off. If not, I'm not going to worry about it till we finish. So you can see we basically made the mask by increasing. We did the casing, we did the increase, we did the decrease, and we're doing the casing. So it's basically half and half of exactly the same thing, just different ways of doing it. Okay. And it's where we started with a bind on. We're going to finish with a bind off. All right, so now all we're going to do is take the bottom loops, put them over the top. Once again, first one's always the hardest. And if you also don't keep your loops all the way at the bottom, it's a little easier. So if I want to make it easier on myself, I can push these all up a little bit. You know, they always said keep your loops at the bottom, but it's a little easier if you don't have that far to go. Okay. All right, now I actually had a boo-boo earlier, and so what I had done is I'd gone ahead and I'd cut off my double string, and I had tied it off. I had just tied it off right here, and it's actually hidden now, but I had tied it off and I had hidden it inside with the elastic. So if you're wondering why do I have one string, Well, when I do the bind off, I don't want all that bulk because I don't have a ton of bulk over here. I have enough, but not a ton. If I had 2 layers, it would be too much because I'm actually doing the bind off on this side. So when you do the bind off, you're gonna just go ahead and do a wrap on this one, do a wrap on this one. You're gonna push them over. Push them over. Move number 2. To number 1. Pull it gently. Toss it over. Move it back to number 2. Okay, you've now got 2 loops, but this time you only knit off number 2, toss it over, move number 2 to number 1, pull gently, toss that over, move number 1 back to number 2, okay, knit off number 2. Move over, over, move back, over, 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 over. Move back, loop number 2, knit over, loop over, loop over, knit over one last time, loop over. I've already got my tail cut, and pull through. Okay, and there's the one I couldn't find, so I'm going to go ahead and remove that. All right, come on, come off. There we go. All right, so here is your mask. Okay, so you can see it. And when you put it on, it's taller at the top, it's taller at the bottom. You've already got your elastic in. So all you're going to need to do is either sew your elastic shut or tie it shut. And because I've left it 12 inches long, I have plenty of room to tie it. So I'm only going to tie it once because I like to sew mine shut. And it's just really quickly lay one end. If you're going to sew it, lay one end over the other end. Sew it here, and then move that to the inside. But I'm going to show you if you want to tie it. Just pull it through, basic knot. And I would knot it twice. And then what you need to do is you need to move it, and you're going to have to use your fingers to get the knot to go on the inside. Okay? And you might even have to use like a crochet hook or something. But you're going to have to do that to get the knot to go on the inside. And it might take a little bit of pulling, but it will go. And use my... should have pulled out my crochet hook for this part. Okay. Let me just tuck that one end in right there. Okay. And now you would just do that to the other side. The only thing I need to do is I need to weave in my ends. And once I have that, I'll have a loop at one side. I'll have a loop on the other side. Once I make this loop, weave in my ends. And there is my mask. Okay. And it's pretty full. There's not a whole lot of ends under, but like I said, I'm going to use this with another paper mask underneath and just have this on top, so it doesn't look you know, I guess so scary, they would say so scary, but it fits perfectly. It looks perfectly. You can adjust this to the size that you need. All right, and once you get it on your face, it fits really comfortably. Okay, and you can adjust it. If you need a smaller one, don't go all the way out to the 18 rows. If you need a larger one, make more than 18 rows. And because you're adding the elastic yourself, you can adjust how much elastic. If you need less elastic, use less or tie it tighter. If you need more elastic, use more. But this is a really great pattern for a face mask. And I thank you for watching it with me. I hope that you can use it. I hope that it helps you, especially right now. And this is only my second video, so thank you for bearing with me, and have a great day and stay safe.